we're going to lose clients. Every business is going to lose clients.
Absolutely.
Steve Scholl, I think, says this. Like, if you're going to lose them, just lose them quickly.
Yes.
Don't waste time and energy and effort on this person and then lose them because they're fucking unreasonable.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Medeiros.
And I'm Colleen Hungerford. And this is We're Doing This Right? A podcast for the whole woman. Mind, body, soul, and business.
It's humor infused, as real as it gets, inspiring, and you'll walk away with real usable tools for life and business.
If you love what you're hearing, please share with a friend, subscribe so you'll never miss an episode, and rate and review whenever you listen.
So find your earbuds, lace up your walking shoes, or cozy up with a beverage of your choice. It's time to dig in.
Hello, the party people, the doing it righters, the inspire herd people. Thanks for being here.
Herd, like a herd of really lovely.
Her is inspired, so
not like a herd of elephants.
Yeah, which that's a conversation you and I need to have behind the scenes. But are we going to rebrand Inspire Her into what?
Into what?
Someone, since we've been running it, started using it, and that's going to be a problem.
Yeah. But so if anybody has any great ideas, let us know.
I really like the idea. I'm just going to float this with you guys. Inspired connection, but the erd is then like spelled her, inspired connection. I really like that for some reason. I feel like everything we talk to goes back to connection. So
yeah, it does. I'm open to all brand new ideas. So
yeah,
we'll work.
Colleen's not married to it. If she was, we would have been
I'm not married to that. No, I'm not married to that. We'll workshop. We'll workshop that. How about that?
We'll be workshopping. Yes, we sure will. We sure will.
What are we talking about today? We know what we're talking about today, but I think this is something that we haven't really touched on this topic.
Not to my recollection. Maybe like in some episodes, but not a full focus sesh.
Right. So we're going to talk about value proposition, knowing your worth.
Mm-hmm.
And how to make sure that as entrepreneurs, as executives, we're either getting compensated fairly for the work that we're doing, but then also recognized and asking for things when we should be asking for them. That's what we're going to talk about today.
Mm-hmm. We come up against this a lot. We negotiate our fee with every client that we have, and negotiates. Right. I mean, that is truly what we're doing, but also like I know my fee and you know your fee.
Right.
But people are asking us about it. Okay, so let's just play something out here. Let's see. You go to your doctor and they're an expert in whatever it is that they do, whatever their specialty is. And so you go and you get the service and there's a fee that they charge you for that.
Right.
I'm wondering how many of you say to the doctor, is your fee that you've set negotiable? I'd like to talk you down from that number. Is anybody doing that? Just wondering.
I think people are doing it on the back end to billing, but they're definitely not doing it to their doctor.
Yeah, doctor's weird because of the insurance and all the things. So your lawyer, your attorney.
Lawyer, your accountant, your financial advisor, your any of those. Like there's a fee for the work that they do. Our industry is weird, and we're not going to get into the weeds too much with all that has gone on with our industry in commissions and stuff, because also legally we don't want to get sued.
Don't come at us, bro.
But our industry is unique in that the way that people thought, here's the thing, the way that people thought we traditionally got paid was that the seller paid us, right? Based off of a commission. Based off of a commission set by the seller's agent. Does that make sense, right? How people thought, and this is all perception, not reality, because it was never actually this way, right? It was always negotiable. It was always negotiable. So that was the whole weird thing about this lawsuit. Anyway, the perception was that the seller's agent would determine the commission and then split it in some way to the buyer's agent, right? So technically, quote unquote, the seller is paying for a commission. whatever.
Yes, but I'd like to put a caveat on that and say who actually brings all the money into a real estate transaction.
The buyer is always paying for it because
the buyer is always it's built into the purchase price. It's always been that way. So the buyer, in my opinion, has always paid all the commission.
It's semantics here because it's an exchange of money, and it's like there is no sale if the buyer doesn't bring the money.
Right.
And then
nobody gets paid.
It's kind of nobody gets paid.
Seller,
right?
Agents, nobody's paid if the buyer doesn't bring the money.
Right.
So yes, all about how you look at it and how you want to have the perception. So anyways, long and short of it is like on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, Colleen and I, many of you are having this conversation with clients saying, okay, so we're going to enter into this agreement to work together.
Yeah, what's your fee?
Here's what we're going to provide for you. And then here's the fee that we charge.
And I actually think this NAR settlement, sorry to cut you off, but is actually great for agents. I know everybody was like really upset about this, but now when we go into a relationship with a client, like you did on the seller side, now when you go into a relationship with a buyer, it's upfront.
Right.
It's in a contract what your fee is. And any negotiating that you want to do with your agent happens at that point before you even start the work, right? Like, 'cause now the way things go, you have to have a contract in order to start working with a client as a buyer, right? And
right. Historically, that you didn't need to have. Yeah. Always on a listing perspective, you needed to have an agreement from the listing perspective, but the buyer representation agreement is new. That's what's really changed, is that this agreement has to be signed for all states before I can show you property, before I can give you specific details about any specific property. Like, this is supposed to be defined and done before we have any conversations. So now I'm going to come back to my medical analogy. So I'm going to go to a therapist because my therapy is not covered by my insurance. Before I see my therapist for the first time, I get a new patient intake form. Or like information. And in that information, it outlines to me like the length of my appointments, the fee that she's going to charge me, the fee she's going to charge me if I don't show up, my responsibilities to her, and all these disclosures. It's the same fucking thing, just to be totally clear. It's the same fucking thing. Except as a buyer's agent, I'm reviewing that in person generally with my client before I enter into. I don't just send them a package in the mail.
We have these contracts up front, and when I talk to my buyers, I say, okay, here, this is what this contract says. It outlines my duties and my role, my responsibility to you as a buyer, and it outlines my fee and blah, blah, blah. And we talk about that, right? We have the conversation. Now, for me personally, my fee, most of the time, I will put that caveat in there, is 3%. That's my fee. That's what I charge for the services that I provide. And this is not really about the money. I am very confident in saying that is my fee, because I have a very strong value proposition. I know that what I am giving my clients is well worth whatever that fee is, right? So I can very confidently go into that appointment and say, here's what I do, here's how I do it, here's all the things, all the service and the things that I provide as your buyer's agent or as your listing agent. Here are all these things. And very confidently have that conversation. Now, when I first started out, that conversation was much harder, because when I first started out, I don't know that I was confident in my value proposition. I don't know that I was confident in what I was offering to my clients. And I think that's where and that's what I kind of wanted to talk about this today, is like, it's not just about the ask. I love, especially women, asking, right? I'm asking for a raise. I'm asking for more money. I'm asking for whatever. But I think in order for us to really feel confident about that ask and to go into that ask without hesitation, you have to have a really strong viewpoint about your value proposition. Cheryl, give us the definition of value proposition, because I know you love the definitions. I know you love it.
A strong value proposition clearly communicates the unique value of a product or service to a specific customer by addressing their needs and differentiating itself from its competitors, which is crucial for an effective marketing and business strategy. Right. So what is it that you do, and why is that different from the other people that offer something similar to what you do?
Right. And I think it's really hard to figure that out, especially when you're new in an industry, because what you do is similar. You don't know, and what you do is very similar to what other people do. Right. And I think it takes doing it more and more and more to feel confident in what you actually can provide to a client and what services you can provide and do provide, right? And I think so it takes a little bit almost like workshopping, right? And I think your value proposition changes over time too, right? Like,
right. Yes, I agree completely. When I first started in this business, I was just like, give me anybody that'll work with me, that knows, likes, and trusts me enough. And now I'm doing a lot of Sphere and a lot of referrals. And with the referrals, the people that don't know you, they're not your Sphere, you do have to define your value a little bit more to them. And there is a little bit more negotiation. And I know now my value is the level of organized and detailed that I am makes for a very smooth process. I am 3 steps ahead of what's happening. I have market expertise, but a lot of people have market expertise.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's easy. The internet can give us that data. My systems, the way I run my business, my personality, my relationships that I have with vendors and the people that we're going to utilize during this process, my team, I always work with a team. Like, I know that sets me apart. Like, there's a handful of things that I do specifically that are going to really set me apart from how they do it. And you don't know how other people are doing it until you've worked a handful of transactions and you've seen how that works. And again, this is any business. Like, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know the ins and outs of your business until you know the ins and outs of your business.
Right. Like, so perfect example that's not real estate related, right, is I was an athletic trainer for 15 years, right? So I worked in sports medicine and I did rehab and I blah, 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 blah. When I went to apply for this new job, I was young. I was 26 and I was going to start their sports medicine program. I was going to build this whole program from scratch at this school and whatever. But I was very, very confident in the experience that I had. And even, at that point I was probably 5 years out of graduate, 5 years being certified. And I went in and was able to get a job and say, like, here's my experience, here's my skills, here's my education, here's what I've done so far in, the 5 years that I've been in this industry. And also here's the business background that I have, here's the administrative background that I have, and X, Y, and Z, and receive an offer at a higher level than most athletic trainers in Los Angeles County to start, right? And then be able to negotiate that. And then when I went on to become the athletic director, I was the highest paid athletic director in the southern section, which I would say when I was associate athletic director, I was the highest paid associate athletic director. There's athletic directors that out there getting like shit tons of money, especially in Southern California. But I was, because I provided so much value, and sometimes you have to ask for it, but sometimes it's kind of just given to you because of the value that you provide. Not given to you, offered to you, right?
Right.
But I was able to show that value in my work ethic, in the results that I was getting, in my communication with the students and the parents, in my communication with administration, and the relationships that I was building. And you and I we talk about connection, we talk about relationships, networking all the time. If you're struggling to figure out what your value proposition is, look to your network. Who do you know, right? How is that of value? That is so huge when you're thinking about what differentiates you. If you're able to create relationships and have relationships with people that then benefits your client or your customer or the person that you're serving, that's a value. You talked about, right, like with your vendors, like I talk about my relationships with other agents locally. Like,
yeah, that's huge. in a multiple offer situation, you want your offer to sit a little bit higher. You know, if all other things are equal and we have identical offers, your agent's reputation could get you that deal. And it has.
Or not.
Yeah, or not. I'm such an optimist. I always glass is half full. Like, we have won deals solely because we are the agents on them.
Absolutely. I've literally had another agent say, Colleen, you got this because I would rather work with you. And it was a good offer, obviously. Right?
Right. But all other things equal. Like, if all other things are equal, your relationships can push you over the edge. It's booking a home inspection. We're on a very tight contingency period.
Yeah.
I have a fantastic relationship with my home inspector and the scheduler. And so I can call them and say, I need you to fit an extra inspection in your day tomorrow so that we can get this done. Or contractor, I need you to come out and look at this ASAP. I've got to hit this deadline and I need you here. And I have a huge list of people that are very willing to do that for me because I've cultivated a relationship with them over time. So yeah, I mean, relationships, look to your community. Another way you can look to your network and your community is asking the people around you, like, where do you see me shine? You know, if you're struggling to define your own value proposition, Susan gives us advice. Go look at your Google reviews.
Susan.
Look at the reviews you've gotten. I know we haven't talked about you in a while, Susan. I'm sorry. I love you. Go look at your Google reviews. What are people saying? Are there keywords that are popping up over and over and over again? There's a clue to as what your value might be. Or ask your best friend, your coworker, an agent you've recently worked a deal with, you know, somebody, a vendor you work with, say like, what is it you like about working with me?
Right.
And then use that to help you define your value proposition.
Yeah. I would also add to that, if you're just starting out, I did this when I was, this came out of a course that I took with Jess Lenavelle, which is the More Money, Less Hustle. She wrote that book, More Money, Less Hustle. But when I was trying to put together like part of some marketing and stuff like that, but I interviewed my ideal client. I literally called up 5-6 different people who I would consider like my ideal client, right? All people I knew, right? And I said, what is important to you? What are you looking for? What do you want in this experience of upsizing or moving? Or why would you, what things are important to you when you're looking for an agent, X, Y, and Z? So I could gather that information and then see if what I'm offering aligns with those things, right? Like, or are there places where I should be stronger? Like, a lot of what I heard was communication and making sure everybody knew what to expect and making sure people were sometimes handheld through some of these deals and negotiations and advised. Like, those were things that I was hearing. And so those were things that I really started to focus on and grow my strengths in those areas, right? So I think it's important, again, if we talk about network and we talk about relationships, it's using your network and using your relationships to gather information, to have them tell you what you're good at, because you're going to think, oh, I'm good at this. And they're like, no, man, what's great is like, you always show up on time. That's important to me. Or like, you walked me through this when I didn't know what to expect. Or, you were walking through the house pointing things out that I would have never seen, or, stuff like that. Like all of those different things that maybe you take for granted as part of your value. It's great to kind of get an outside perspective on that.
I'm going to flip the script here for a second and say, as a consumer, when you are working with someone that's doing a fabulous job, point out and tell them what they're doing well.
Oh my God.
Just because we all need to hear it.
Like, we do.
As much as you need to hear it, like that expert that you're working with over there needs to hear it. Like your party planner you're working with right now. Like I know that person has taken a tremendous amount of stress off your plate and things that you never even thought or knew would be a stressor. She's just handling. And that's kind of the thing. I mean, you said in one of your Instagram posts this week is like, I'm solving problems before you even know they exist. And that is so valuable. And like when this is over, I hope you take the time to tell her, and maybe you already have, my God, you made this process fantastic because of X, Y, and Z. And like, you really shine here. Like give that feedback and give that to people because they need it.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, if you are in the Indianapolis area or surrounding area, because I think she does travel, Annie Nicolay, and we'll put her in stuff in there as Annie & Co. events. She's fucking phenomenal, dude. And we should have her on the show because she's great. I mean, this is where I was, you know, people talk about like, I can do it myself. Sure you can. I could have planned this event myself. It would not be as fucking cool as it's going to be tomorrow. And I'm so stoked, right? And, you know, she's doing... And it's so funny because you think about, I do this stuff all day long. I negotiate contracts all day long. Do I know how to negotiate a food contract for an event venue? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't know. Do I know how much food I need to have for 90 people? I would think, oh, it's just 90 people. And she's like, no. Like, not everybody's going to eat all these things. Like X, Y, and Z. Right. All this expertise. And her value is in all of that. Her value is in, you know, like helping me make decisions about things. Her value is doing the negotiations. Her value is all the shit she's ordering behind the scenes that I don't know about, that she's like, oh, I'm just going to return this to Amazon if we don't like it, you know, whatever. Or the vendors that she knows, like they just, I would have not been able to do it to the level. I would have paid the same amount of money, if not more, but not gotten the same result. And this is...
So that's where her value, like, yes, you're going to pay her, but she's going to save you here. She's going to, you know, it's like when we're advising a client and they're like, no, I don't need a home inspection. I'm like, listen,
my God,
invest in this. I know it sucks to spend $650 on this. And wouldn't it be way worse to have a $15,000 repair as soon as you close escrow because you didn't do a home inspection? Like the value is here.
Yeah.
The $600 when I'm trying to get somebody to
thousands.
I know I'm trying to get somebody to do a pre-listing inspection. Like it's very common in my market that before you list a home, the homeowner pays for a pre-listing home inspection, pest inspection, sewer lateral. We get everything that we expect a buyer would do because I want that information up front. So the offer we get is the offer we close with. And then we're not negotiating a $20,000 credit or all this bullshit and the stress of that.
The unknown, right?
That. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I just want it done. And that's, you know, that's one of the valuable pieces I bring to the table is I'm going to push you, my client, to do this. And it's in your best interest.
Right. Well, it's the same thing. Like we talk, and again, obviously this is all real estate based because that's what you and I do, right? When we talk about staging, like one of the things that we say here, at least what I say and what a lot of people in my agency say is like the prices in the prep. And I know you guys do, you prep homes really amazingly too. Like if you invest in the staging, and I've had to really talk people through it. I've really had to talk them through it on some of this sometimes. Cause you're like, when I sold my home in LA, my wonderful agent, Valerie Talbert, who's a Compass agent out of La Cañada. She's amazing. If you're in the area, you should use her.
We are sponsored by Valerie. Keep going. Just kidding. We're not sponsored. That was an unpaid referral.
That was an unpaid referral. She's fabulous. But anyway, she was like, okay, I've got a stager. We're going to stage. And I was like, okay. And then it was going to be like $2,500. And I was like, oh, and she's like, no. I know, but you have to stage this house. And I was like, okay, I will do it. And then the stager came, and I tell this story to my clients all the time. And remember, in this time, I worked in design, right? So I did home design at this time. And I walked into my house, and it looked beautiful, but I was like, I freaked out because I didn't feel like it was enough. And this is the difference between staging and designing. And I called her. I was like, "Oh my God, I just paid all this money." I was the worst client. I was the worst, and she was the best. And I was just like, "I don't think it's enough. This is so bare in here. This looks stupid, blah, blah, blah." And she really talked me through it. She was like, "No, I get it. I get what you're seeing, but we're not staging for you. This is not for you. This is for the client coming in to try to picture." And so I've had to tell that embarrassing story about me freaking out about the staging to my clients all the time, right? This is why it's important. Now, we also sold our house for like well over $100,000 over ask. So the $2,000 that I spent in staging like paid off, okay? But those are expert opinions and expert skills that are going to make you more money, right?
Right.
And that was part of her value proposition, bringing that to the table that then benefited me as her client.
You do this as a consumer, this one thing, whatever it is you're hiring somebody for, you do this a handful of times in your life.
Yeah.
Your expert that you're hiring does this all day, every day. So I'll take it back to my insurance career. We were never the cheapest. I never was the cheapest. We had this chart that was like price and value and like a little like indicator on the linear line, and like we were always like by value and really far away for price. We actually, as agents, we used to joke like, wow, we keep moving further and further away from that price side on this. Why does that keep happening? So anyways, one of the ways we set ourselves apart, and so that I was able to sell, like obviously coverages was important in insurance, especially. So I was not doing like personal. I was not doing your homeowners or your car insurance. I was selling a package to businesses that was comprehensive and covered them for general liability, their property in transit, employment related practices, lawsuits. We were the full package that a business needs to run, a large business. And we provided tremendous risk management resources. And that was really where the value is. And then also my expertise. So I could say to them, like, listen, we were a niche carrier. We work with only these specific types of businesses. In your type of businesses, we have seen claims coming in for X, Y, and Z lately.
Yeah.
How's your coverage that you currently have protecting you for those things? Because that's what's actually happening right now in your industry. And then I could design coverages that work for them. And then I could provide these risk management resources for them that could help them avoid those claims altogether, because nobody wants to use their insurance, even if they have it. And, I was able to like bring in all of this expertise from my experience in these specific types of businesses that really did translate to my customers. And then sometimes like my relationship with a vendor, for instance, that they would need to use, they were given a network discount to use that vendor. Yeah. And then when it was time for them to renew, I could then, as the expert, say, well, you're really using this service that we've connected you with and you get a discount for. You're using this a lot. If you were to replace this service with another one without our network discount, you're now paying higher and you're overall out of pocket for the year. So stay with us, because here's additional value that we've built into this package and made it really hard for you to leave us. We give out those golden handcuffs in that business. Yeah. Now my golden handcuffs is just doing such a tremendous job for my clients that they could never imagine working with anybody else.
Right.
And making it fun, because I am a fun agent.
You are a fun agent.
I'm going to send you some fucking gifts that are going to make you laugh when you're feeling a little bit stressed. I'm going to acknowledge the stress you're going through. I'm going to normalize it. I'm going to be your fucking therapist, and that's fine with me. I'd much rather focus on your problems than mine. Let's go.
For sure. And I think one of the things that I really wanted to make to kind of, I don't want to say drive home, but talk about at least, or acknowledge, is that like your value proposition will change. It takes time to figure out what your value proposition is. But when you have a strong one, know your value and don't compromise that value, right? It doesn't mean we're not compromising sometimes, but I'll tell everybody the story that I was telling Cheryl earlier today. So I have a client now who I love, but it's a business, right? And that's a little bit different than a person, right? So there's higher levels, there's boards that are making decisions, and they were really not the guy I was working with, but his uppers were like, well, we don't really want to pay this commission. We want
nobody wants to pay for it.
I was like,
I'd love a freebie.
Yeah, me too. And they were like, and this isn't the guy that I'm facing. This is some guy who's never met me, never seen me, whatever. And I got a call this morning and it was like, we want to know how many transactions you've closed since this new NAR law went into effect, that the seller has paid all of your fees. Now, the answer to that is all of them. Like all the deals that I've done, I have yet to have, this is my experience, this is anecdotal, just so we're all clear, I have yet to have a situation where my client has had to quote unquote pay my fee, right? We've always negotiated it as part of the deal, okay? Again, remember the client's bringing the money, so technically they are paying for it, so whatever. But I said to this guy, I was irritated by this, right? And I was just like, okay. I said to them, I said, I understand. I get it. But this is a red flag to me. This is a service-based company. And I said to them, I would bet that the clients that you serve pay you for your service. And he was like, So
obviously,
I
yeah. Otherwise we wouldn't be in fucking business.
Right. And I said, and I am very confident in the service that I provide and the value that I bring to the table. You guys are welcome to use whoever you want. And I'm also free to work with whomever I want. But if your boss doesn't see the value in what I offer, then we've got a problem.
Red flag. Yeah.
It's a red flag to me.
You know, he was like, my ass the whole way through.
Oh my God. And I think we need to pay attention as entrepreneurs or service providers, particularly people who are working off commission, right? These are the warning signs that we have to look for. And I did this very nicely. Listen, I wasn't a total bitch, but I was just like, hey, Brad, I know this isn't coming from you. You and I are cool. Like, you and I are good. I get it. I know this is coming from up above. I said, if your boss wants to call me, I'm happy to have a conversation with him. But I think one of the things that we also have to do as service providers is also hold your integrity, know your value, understand that, again, abundance mindset. I had to be willing to let that deal go, let that client go, right? And also know that if I take this client on, and we haven't talked about this, right? We haven't kind of aired this thing out. I'm going to feel disgruntled that they don't value me, and they're not going to value me. They're just not going to, right? Mm-hmm. So this, is a situation where we have to kind of talk about this stuff. And I don't want to say like stand up for yourself, because sometimes that sounds like abrasive or argumentative or whatever. But if you start to see red flags early on, and you know your value proposition, and you know what you offer is good, and you know somebody is not going to value you, then you have to have a real conversation with yourself and your team, if you have a team, like whether this is a client you want to take on. Right.
I'm listening to Mel Robbins right now, and it's the let them theory or whatever that she's apparently she didn't coin this phrase, but she's sure making empire off it, which whatever, you do you, boo. What I found interesting, like, okay, we're writing a whole book about let them, and essentially if you haven't read it, it's like, okay, they don't want to pay your full commission, let them work with somebody else. That's fine.
Yeah.
But in this scenario, so it's let them, and then like, I think the real power in the book is then let me. So it's let them and then let me. So it's like, we can't control them. We can't control what they're going to do.
Right.
I can control me. So in this scenario, like, you can let them push back on your commission. Let them push back on their commission. The decision I'm going to make, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define my value to you and give you a hard line. Like, this is it.
That's it.
It's either going to work or it's not going to work. And like, let's cut bait. We're going to lose clients. Every business is going to lose clients.
Absolutely.
Steve Scholl, I think, says this. Like, if you're going to lose them, just lose them quickly. Like, don't waste time and energy and effort on this person and then lose them because they're fucking unreasonable. Right. We had sellers that I'm trying to prepare their home, trying to price and prepare their home, and I'm getting pushback every step of the way. They want an astronomical price that their home will not sell for. Mm-hmm. There are not comps to support it. That's going to make my life a living hell because I'm not going to live up to what you want. Like, I can't deliver what you want because it's fucking unicorns.
Because it's not realistic.
It's not real, but I can't deliver that. And then I'm like, okay, so if you want to get to the top of your price point, we need to do X, Y, Z to prepare your home. And no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'm like, well, fuck all of this noise. I am not interested in spending my next 4 months working with you, pounding my fucking head against the wall every time we turn around. I will take that time and energy and go work with someone who values me, who knows that I'm an expert in what I do and is going to trust that expertise when I give them guidance on price and presentation.
Correct.
Bye.
And I think there's a couple things there. One, and I'm not saying that you did this at all, but one, when we're talking about people, especially if you're new in entrepreneurship or new in sales or new in commission-based businesses, is like, make sure that you're clearly defining what your value proposition is, right? I know you did this, right? So this is not it. But if you don't, then like this guy up, right? Like I had to rely on the fact that the CEO that I met with relays my value proposition, which I relate to him, up to the next CEO of the parent company, right? And that's where it was coming from, right? So maybe he didn't do that, right? Maybe he didn't do that because I didn't get a chance to meet with this guy.
And yeah, sales like 101 is
who's the decision maker.
You got to be with the decision maker, because if you're not, then your shit is going to get lost in translation. It's not going to get delivered in the way you would do it.
Right.
Not going to be effective.
Correct. So there's that. So make sure that you're appropriately defining your value, right? And then 2, if you've done that and you very early on start to see the red flags like you are right now, right? And I did today, you have to be able to recognize when someone can't or won't see the value in what you do.
Right.
And every time I have sacrificed in that situation or negotiated with myself or felt super desperate about, I didn't have an abundance mindset. I mean, I can remember when we were in the construction, when I had my construction and design firm, one time I negotiated our fee. One time I allowed somebody to negotiate our fee.
And how did that go? How did that entire experience go for you?
Oh my God, it was the worst client we ever had. Worst client we ever had. And I took that in a situation where I felt very desperate. I was like, oh, we don't have another client lined up. She can fit right into this situation. And she pushed back on our fee. And I was like, okay.
Some of something's better than none of nothing.
Correct. And it was not. It was the hardest project we did. It was the worst project not worst. We ended up giving them a good product, but the experience for everybody was awful. And it was a situation where I also compromised, where I let her do part of the work, or tried to be like, she wanted to bring in her own painter. And I was like, no. And then she was like, well, I'm going to bring in my own painter. And then it was a fucking disaster. So lesson learned. I never did that again. And I will never do that in any of my other businesses. Like, I know if somebody is negotiating my commission, here's a lesson. If somebody's negotiating your commission, you have, in my opinion, you haven't properly expressed your value proposition. They don't see the value in you and what you're doing, right? Now, if somebody wants to ask, I had somebody one time say, hey, is your fee with you negotiable? And I just said, no, it's not for me. Right? This is
right. My fee. This is the fee This is what I work for.
This is what I work for. I just smiled and I said, no, it's not. And he just said, okay, I just had to ask. I said, great. I totally get it. I get people want to ask.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that I have to accept that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like, so we can have the conversation, and
yes,
I'm gonna land right where I started.
Correct. Like, this is not something, and now am I going to say, like, have there never been times where I've taken 2.5% instead of 3%? Sure. There's times I have, right? But I felt good in what that meant for me and for them, right?
It was a unique scenario. It was a one-off. It worked for whatever reason.
Correct. I just think that those are things that I have learned, while I have not been in real estate a decade, I've been in business for 1 billion years, right? And these are all things that apply. Yeah. They transfer no matter what. And I think this also comes, you and I have our unreasonably confident spirits, right? What do we call it? Like
extreme confidence? Or Delulu?
Delulu, right?
Delulu confidence.
But what backs that is that we know we do a good fucking job.
I have never had a client in any of the businesses I have been in that regretted what they paid me after they were done. Right. Never. I've not had an unhappy customer with anything I could control.
Correct.
Period. I'm going to give a shout out to Rachel Metzger, Christie's International in Park City and Salt Lake City, Utah. And when she was our agent, so we hired her to sell our house and help us purchase this property. And my husband was prepared to negotiate the commission with her for our property.
Oh my God.
And I mean, I knew he was going to ask, and I was already annoyed because I'm just like, fucking pay the girl what she's worth. Like, I went after her. We're hiring her. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Anyhow, she comes with this presentation and goes through, and we bought and sold. I had bought and sold twice. Alex had worked with an agent, didn't end up buying with them, and then bought with me. So I had seen how other people do this job. And I sat down with her and I was like, she knocked my socks off with her clear plan. Like buy and sell when you need, it's a contingent purchase. Like it's complicated. You have to line up all these different deadlines and all these different dates. And there's a lot of moving parts to manage. And she came with this presentation with such a clear plan for us that my husband literally said to her, I was going to ask you if you would reduce your commission, and I can't possibly do that after this. And my husband is frugal as fuck. He does not like to pay anybody what they're worth. Yeah. Like he would take a deal from anybody. So, I mean, that is what, and that was who I was mentored by. But so anyways, if you're buying or selling in Park City, Utah or Salt Lake City, Utah, please call Rachel Metzger. We are sponsored.
We are sponsored by her.
We're officially sponsored by her. She mentored me and taught me everything I know, and I adore her. So anyhow, she presented her value, and we could not negotiate that. Correct. She had done an excellent job at that. And that's what we all need to do with whatever industry you're in when you're meeting with these clients. Like, show up in a way where they're not going to feel like they could possibly ask you to reduce your fee.
Yeah. And if they do, and you've adequately communicated your value proposition, then maybe they're not your client.
Exactly. There's the red flag. There's the like, okay, we probably aren't going to be a good fit. I'm happy to give you some names of some other agents that might work better for you, or some other businesses. Let me send you that way. It is the hardest fucking thing to cut bait. I get it. Like, I remember being in the insurance business, and like, it wasn't only like the amount of income that I made, but I also had to like make a certain number of sales. And like, there was always a fucking quota on like whatever we were supposed to be hitting. And I remember just thinking over and over, I cannot wait to be in a position where I don't have to work with some of these people that I'm fucking stuck working with because I have to hit this quota. Now I run my own business and I don't have to work with those people, and I'm not going to. And I'm so glad about that. But it doesn't mean it's easy to walk away from that paycheck. Like, it's bright and shiny and it's right there and we could have it. But I just don't want to. The stress is not worth it, especially with where I'm in my current phase of life. Like, there's somebody else is out there. It's like you said before, this is not the last house I'm going to sell. It's not the last property I'm going to be in contract for. Like, there's more coming.
And here's the other thing that I wanted to say too. You know, I was on a team that I got trained on, and there were a lot of things that I didn't love about that. One of the things that we did weekly was practice our value proposition. We did. We practiced, quote unquote, defending our commission, which I don't like that term because I don't need to defend anything that I do. Right. But I can practice my
come with a strong offense and blow that defense out of the water.
Right. I shouldn't have to be on the defense if somebody asks me, right? It should just be like, nah, man, this is what it is.
Right.
But we practiced it so much and I hated it. I hated doing all of the like sitting around and role play. I fucking hate role playing. And I don't know that I need role playing, but there were a lot of women in on that team that needed to role play over. I tend to role play in my head. I don't need to do it. Do you do that?
And I can hear it. I can hear it and visualize it. Yes. Like, I'm a good visualizer. Yeah. I can do that. And then I don't really need to practice. If I can just read and like, I can become a self-taught expert on almost anything.
Yeah. I think I was really thinking about this the other day. It's very interesting. Like, people will be like, oh, you know, like they plan out their outfits or they whatever, you know, like, and everybody's like, oh, you do everything last minute. Nah, man, I'm thinking about everything like for weeks.
I execute at the last minute.
I execute at the last minute, but everything is going on. Like, I have a mental inventory of what is in my closet. I know exactly what I have and what I want to wear and what I want to look like and how it goes, right? Just as an example. But same thing with this, right? Like, you go in, I mentally practice in my head. Now, not everybody can do that, right? So we did a lot of this practice. So if this is something that you don't feel comfortable with, practice it. Mm-hmm. Practice it. If you feel awkward saying this is what my fee is, then you practice it. And you practice all the different things that are going to come up. Oh, but this guy will do it for less. Great. Go. You should hire that guy then.
Right.
You know, or here's why he does it for less. Here's why I do it for more.
Right.
You know, you don't need to talk about the other person, right? But you talk about yourself, right? And really pinpoint down as finite as you can what differentiates you from the next guy or girl, right? Next person. What makes you special? What is the thing that you do really, really well? And again, that's going to change over time, right? Now, one of the things that I do really well, one of the things that I offer my clients is I can find them properties before they hit the market because of the network that I've created over the years, right? And there are certain types of agents that work in certain price points, I will say, that communicate to each other. So if you want a house in this neighborhood or this price point or this thing, I know the agents there and we can find you something before it comes on the market. Now, we want to be very clear about clear cooperation because that's still a thing. But that means
if they don't have a listing agreement signed yet, you can go find that property for them.
Correct. I can go and get you to be the first person in that house. And we can put together an offer before anybody else.
Yeah.
Right. And those are just the things that I can do because of how I've cultivated my relationships in my business that some agent that you just fill out the form on Zillow might not be able to do. By the way, don't do that. Okay, everybody?
Yeah, don't do that. If you need an agent, call Colleen and I, and we will happily vet and interview and introduce you to strong professional agents in your market. I wanted to say one more thing that's not really relevant or on topic, but it made me think about it because I was thinking, it was when I said, oh, I always used to think, I can't wait to this. Okay, well, when I was young, I always said and thought, I don't want a job that has homework when I grow up. And by God, did I not get the most homework ever.
Most homeworky job ever.
Like, how funny is that I thought, and I thrive and I love it. I would not trade this for the world. I love the homework of it.
Yeah.
But I just recently that dawned on me, I thought when I grew up, I didn't want homework. And yet, and any entrepreneur, it's not just because I'm a realtor.
No.
I'm an entrepreneur. I'm thinking about the Inspire Her. I'm thinking about the podcast. I'm thinking about real estate. I'm thinking about what next endeavor I'm going to do. I'm thinking about the book I'm going to write. All these, I have so much fucking homework and I love
Oh my
homework.
God. And it's just so funny that's so true. Somebody once said, I wish I just had a job where I could go home and it was done. And I was like, I don't even know what that would be like. I don't even know if I could turn, even when I worked a job that was at the
I always ended up the manager.
Yeah,
because
you're just thinking about it, or you're I would be thinking about patients rehab at home. Oh man, I'm going to really do this thing. Your brain, I don't know what that would be like.
I do. I shut it off in insurance. I was not passionate about that. I was not home thinking about how I could improve my process. I was not home thinking about how I could
what was that like?
Shut it off. It sucked. I remember watching TV shows, especially with investigators and kind of crime TV shows, and feeling God, they're so passionate about their job. Yeah. They love it so much that they eat, sleep, and breathe it. I envied it so much, which was why it was such a soul sucking career. It was because I did not. I mean, who the fuck wants to sell insurance? Nobody wants to talk about insurance. Nobody. I would go see my clients, and for 95% of the meeting, we'd talk about each other and bullshit. And then for 5%, we'd be like, I guess we have to talk about this. Sorry.
Oh can I tell you this one really, really funny story? It's similar to this. So when I was 22, I got audited by the IRS because I had won. I told you I won that jackpot.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So I won a jackpot, $134,000 on an Elvis slot machine when I was 22 years old. So I got audited by the IRS. Anyway, I had to go in, and I'm 23 at this point, 22, 23. I had to call all my paperwork into the IRS office, right? Sit down at a table with a guy. I'm a fake adult at this point, right?
I just phoning it in.
Still
kind of just phoning it in, if we're being honest, when it comes to taxes.
For sure. This was just definitely a TurboTax situation. But I was sitting there and I was looking at this guy, and I was and he was giving me a lot of shit, and everything ended up being fine. And I was like, hey, can I ask you a question? He's like, yeah. I was like, how'd you get this job? Like, why would you choose to be the auditor for the IRS? He's like, I don't know. I just filled out an application on Indeed. And I was like, oh my God, like these are the people who, but like this was that type of job. Like he didn't give a shit. He was just showing up, doing his job, clocking out, following the protocol.
Trying to keep the manager off his ass.
Yeah. Like in a really like cubicle. It was like office space, like, you know, where it was like a dark cubicle. It was dark in there. Everything was gray. It was like cinder block
But did he have
walls.
his own stapler?
He did. I think he did. I think he did. But I was just like, oh man. And like respect. Some people want to do that. Like if that's what you want to do it. Love that for you.
Well, our listeners aren't here because they're
not. Nobody's doing that.
No. Everybody's like got this passion and fuel.
Yeah.
Like you women are so inspirational. Thank you for listening. And 5 men, if you are listening. I did have some men listen to our healthcare episode and got like tremendous feedback.
How many?
Well, it was a male couple, 2 men.
Okay, great.
They really liked it. All right. Well, I have to go because my Inspired Collective is meeting today and I need to
your
go do
herd
that.
Of women.
My herd, my Inspired, we're meeting today. But thanks for talking to me about value. I feel I feel like I have a lot of confidence in self-worth, and that is going to translate when I am showing up to my clients and they're going to pay me full pop.
Full price.
Full price.
That's all we got. All right. Love you. Bye.
All right. Love you. Thanks for coming.
Love you guys. Bye.
Keep doing it right. Bye.
That's a wrap. Thank you for joining us on this journey of laughter, life, and growth.
And remember, you're not alone on this path to success. We're right here with you every step of the way.
Please remember to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's conversation, we'd be thrilled if you would leave us a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback means the world to us.
And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a good laugh and some practical insight into navigating the challenges and triumphs of our minds, body, soul, and business.
Remember, we're doing this right.